Welcome to the Career Wanderlust podcast, your compass for new career horizons. Today, we are talking with April Conyers. April has been a leading strategic storyteller in the communications industry for more than 15 years, specializing in technology and business. Currently, the Vice President of Global Communications with Sword Health, April has also held lead roles for Omaze and Postmates, where she led external comms through the company's acquisition to Uber. And prior to joining Postmates, April topped Business Insider's the 50 best public relations people in the tech industry in 2014 list as a vice president at Brew PR, where she had worked closely with clients such as Oracle, Doctors on Demand, and About Me. I'm really excited to learn more, April. Thank you for joining us on the Career Wonderlist podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's really nice to have you here. April, you've done a lot in your career. So I would love to know what has been a piece of advice or something that you've believed deeply in your career that has really helped carry you through, something that has brought you a lot of benefit.
Yeah, I've received a few pieces of really solid advice through the years. One was really early on in building relationships and really forging relationships with not just reporters, but coworkers and clients, because you never know where everyone's going to end up. And um, then it's really important to invest time in people, which I think as we talk through my career, you'll see there's always some kind of line, from job to job. So
Uh-huh.
I really took that to heart. Another piece of advice I received early on, which at the time I thought, wow, this is kind of harsh, but um, it actually ended up being very good. Don't be afraid to make changes. Like,
Mm,
don't be afraid, whether that's like
mhm.
team changes. And if somebody is not working out, to deal with that sooner rather than later, or even job changes. If you don't like what you're doing, life's too short to stay where you are. So, um, when I got that piece of advice, it was in context of of the team, and I just felt like, well, that's cold. But then as I've grown in my career, I'm like, actually, that's really good advice, because there's nothing worse than kind of just holding on to something and hoping it works out
Right, right,
when you know it's not going to.
right. Even in those moments, like when you know it's not going to work out, and maybe like you said, it's feeling harsh because you don't want to make that change or what have you. But
Hmm.
it is a blessing, right? Because if you know it's not going to work out, to make that change and cut it, it helps the other person too, because it gives them the opportunity to go find the right area for themselves,
Hmm.
and you get to
Hmm.
find the right person for yourself. And I
Exactly.
think I think this is really great advice, because I think we do get a little stuck in the
Hmm.
not wanting to make change, right? It can be really difficult. I mean, change is difficult, even when you know that it's something that you need or
Right.
even want, it can be really
Hmm.
hard. Is there
Yeah.
anything that helps you when it's time to make a change?
I'm a list maker. I'm a big fan of pros and cons lists. So, I usually like sit down and like really put pen to paper and figure out kind of where we, um, you know, what's good about the situation, what's not good about the situation, and figuring it out that way. Because I think sometimes you can be too quick and just be like, I hate this, let's move on, or you can say, hey, here's where the positive is, and is the positive worth kind of trying to work through all of this. So that's just something that I try to tend to be on the optimistic side, and things just work out. And so I try everything that I do kind of has a tinge of that to it. Have a notebook full of pros and cons lists.
I love that. I think
Oh,
lists are very powerful first. I
yeah.
mean, just putting pen
Yeah.
to paper,
Oh,
there's a lot that comes from that, right?
yeah, I think there's something about, like, being able to, like, really think things through as you physically write
Mhm,
something
mhm,
versus, sitting at the computer and just aimlessly typing.
mhm. And so do you feel like the list help you know when it's time for a change too? Or have you noticed that there's something that happens when really it's time for change? And I ask this because we don't always listen to ourselves. And so I'm
Mhm.
just wondering if there's something that you've
Yeah.
noticed that has helped you.
Um, you know, going back to when I was at Postmates, there were a couple of times where I thought, maybe this isn't me forever. Like, maybe this isn't something that I want to stay in. And going through that exercise, like, it forced me to like really deal with kind of how I felt about things. So in those cases at Postmates, I would then go to my boss and be like, hey, here's where I'm having, some kind of issue, or I think this needs to change. So in that regard, it didn't make me leave, but it made me stand up and kind of ask for the
Mhm.
things that I thought needed to change.
Oh, I love that. Well, and that's great. So it's just if you're feeling that feeling, if you're
Yeah.
wondering and you're not sure, that's the time to take the pen and paper out, to make your list, to do the
Hmm.
evaluation. And then once you have some clarity there, you can either talk to your boss or you can make a decision based
Yeah.
on where you're at. I love this. It's great,
I
great advice.
also have a very great husband who will listen to all of this as I'm kind of trying to process what I need to do.
It makes a big difference to have
Yeah.
someone who's willing to listen.
Yes. Yes.
That is fantastic. Now, you also mentioned the relationships. Really quick, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you do special that helps you nurture your relationships?
So, I mean, early in my career, it was a lot of nights out. It was a lot of like, grabbing drinks and dinners and, kind of, I was really lucky to kind of, I say, grow up in like this cool New York tech scene that
Mhm.
was happening in the early 2010s.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of those people that I met during that time, I'm still fairly close to and
Mhm.
can still paying, we're all grown-ups now with kids and in different jobs, a lot of us, some no longer reporters, but I think that it's really important to kind of master the art of being able to have a conversation with somebody about anything. So,
Right.
being able to, like, just strike up a conversation. We joke that I can talk to a wall if I need to. I think that was just spending time with like, not asking for anything, right?
Yeah.
Just, like,
Mhm.
truly
Mhm.
investing in friendships.
Yeah.
Because I always felt that kind of like transactional nature of the PR person reporter kind of things felt unnatural if you didn't have any kind of relationship there. So I thought, one, it was easier to get people to listen to me with what I was pitching if we had a personal relationship. But also, it didn't feel icky. Because sometimes it
Yeah.
feels icky when you're just like trying to get
I
something,
feel you.
without
I
any
feel
kind of
you.
like back and forth. So,
Yeah, I feel that too. I like that. I'm right there
yeah.
with you.
Yeah. So now I do, like the pandemic changed how we do everything, right? And so politics and all that stuff has like totally changed the landscape of everything. So now I do a lot of like Zoom meetings or catch ups
Mhm.
that way. Or if I'm, happen to be in New York City, I try to grab somebody for a coffee, just to,
That's perfect. Get that
yeah,
FaceTime in.
yeah, give it a
Yeah.
little bit of face time.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Now, what about a story? Because I love stories and I feel like you can learn so much from a story. What's something that happened in your career that was turned into an impactful lesson or event for you that you feel other people can learn from as well?
Mhm. There's a lot of stories. Um, so I guess one that is a bit more recent is I was working at Omaze and was unfortunately laid off while I was on maternity leave. They shut
Ooh,
down our US operations. And so that was a
that's
little bit
rough.
that was rough. But I hear this story more often than not. Like people being on maternity leave being laid off. It was like something that just continues to happen. Anyway, besides the point. Um, but I think through that, it taught me the value of the relationships that I was just talking about. Like,
Mhm.
as I was coming, towards that kind of like what I thought was going to be the end of my maternity based on when I left, um, I thought, maybe it's time to kind of start to see what is out there. And I was hearing stories about how no one was getting jobs and everybody was being laid off. And, it was just kind of that time where it was like, well, we'll see. If not, maybe I'll just be a caretaker for a while, um, but what I did was I activated my network. I started to reach out to all of my friends who are at VC firms, asking them what's cool, what's going on,
Mhm.
and through my reporter friends, have you talked to anybody cool? Anybody that need help? Because I didn't know. I thought that maybe I would just consult. And reporters are great for that because they'll say, "Oh, this company really needs some help," you know, because they know better than anybody. Um, so, I did that and ended up with the role that I'm in now because a friend of mine at Founders Fund, who's an investor in Sword, was like, "Oh, you're free? Hey, talk to this company." You should. I'm like, great. This
Isn't
was
that
fantastic.
perfect?
It was perfect,
Yes.
and it worked out. It aligned, and now I've spent a lot of time in enterprise comms in consumer tech, have not spent a ton of time in health tech. So this has been a great change. And
Mhm.
back to what we are talking about, change is good most of the
Yeah.
time. As
Mhm.
scary as it is, change is really good. And having an open mind and being able to say, like, huh, they're going to hire me because of my consumer tech experience, because I came from a cool brand, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I think attracted them to me, because
Mhm.
healthcare is a little bit boring. And,
You could use
you
a little
don't see a
cool.
lot of,
Yeah.
yeah, you don't see a lot of health coverage in like, traditional publications, unless it's like big pharma or,
Mhm.
all of this like GLP-1 Ozempic type medicines,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
like cool and trendy. So like, yeah. So, yeah, it's been great because it's a world that I never thought that I would know about. And
Mhm.
so it's new and fresh at the same time being something that I've done forever. So
Yes. No, that's
yeah.
great. I
Yeah.
know our connections are powerful. They really are. It makes all the difference. Well, and just taking that moment to reach out to your network and letting them know,
Mhm.
that is a big thing. And we don't
Yeah.
always do that. A lot of people will stay quiet on the
Mhm.
big network. And I think that's a
Sure.
mistake. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
I
I think
think
it is too, because, I know you're at first it's an ego hit, right? You
yeah.
don't want to tell anybody. At the same time, it was like, well, I do this or I don't do anything, right?
Yeah. Well,
So
and you know what? It happens to it's a universal thing, you know?
yeah,
And
no,
it's
totally.
rare to escape,
Yeah.
the career world without some kind of area where you're needing a little bit of help. Okay? Let's
Yep.
just be real.
Totally. No,
So
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And everything goes back to building those relationships and having people who are in your corner who trust you and who are willing to um, speak highly of you on your behalf when you need
absolutely.
them to. And
Mhm.
then obviously I would do the same.
Yep.
It became down
And
to it.
and
Yeah.
you've clearly you've risen very regularly throughout your career with promotions,
Mhm.
with elevating your career at every step of the way is what it seems to me. And I'm curious, is there anything that you found has helped you in getting your promotions or in
Mhm.
continually growing in this way? Because you
Yeah.
know what, a lot of people will a lot of times plateau.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it used to be like when you were on the agency side, you had to like threaten to leave or
It
actually
was
leave.
awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, you had to do that. And I worked with so many people who like would boomerang from one company to another and then come back just to get that kind of like title change or
Raise and
incremental
title change. Yeah.
raise. Yeah. Which I think is so silly.
I completely
Um,
agree.
but I think you have to be an advocate for yourself. Nobody's going to do it for you. And even if you have the best boss in the world, like they are not going to advocate for you and your career goals. Now, if you have a good boss, then usually they say, like, what are your goals? Where do you want to end up? And, try to help you kind of get or achieve some of those.
Mhm.
Um, but I have found in my experience that you have to say, um, here's what I want. This is for my growth. I want this, and negotiate that way.
Yeah.
Um, I've never threatened to leave. I don't think that's ever been
I
something,
think that's
but
valuable. I think that's very valuable, and the not threatening
yeah,
to, but like going and saying like, this
yeah,
is what I need. These are my
yeah,
goals. This is what I'd like.
yeah,
How can I get there? How can I work with you to
yeah.
get there?
I think that's it, and I think it's like making sure that I think reviews are very important, because you only have that. You might have a once or twice a year, and making sure that you have those like strong goals like, written down. Here's what I'm working towards. Here's what I'm doing, or here's what I want to do. Um, and then revisiting those on a quarterly basis or a, you know, yearly basis, whatever it is super important.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. Well, and just I'm just thinking about, as a manager, it's really important to do that with your staff and to kind of,
Mhm.
not only sit down with them and go through those goals, but for your own self
Yeah.
to pay attention. Like a quarter goes
Yeah.
by, okay, how are you doing with your goals?
Mhm.
Are you getting it? Is there anything I can do to help you?
Mhm.
This is something that I really enjoy.
Also
This is a great process. Thank you.
also another thing that I think that you should always be prepared for is the list of things that you've achieved in the 6 months
Right.
or the year, because you
Oh
forget,
yes.
right? You
Hmm.
forget when you go in to a performance review, you forget that all of the good that you did, and there's maybe three things that you can remember off the top of your head, but like have that list ready to go.
Thank
Something
you
that
for
I
this.
think
This is actually
is
something
always.
I'm really passionate about this. I think everyone should have two things. I think everyone should have a list of me, where they are adding anything that they feel proud about. And this can be work and life, right? So anything that they feel proud or good about, I feel like they should go on that list for me. So they should have a career one that, you know, consistently, as soon as you start your job, that you should keep track. And I love that
Mhm,
you're bringing this up, because I feel like very small percentage of people are actually doing this.
mhm.
Um, and then you should also have a humble brag folder in your email.
I was gonna say, I used
Yeah,
to have a
yeah, yeah.
kudos folder. I haven't set one
Yes,
up at Sword, but I had a kudos folder that I would, like, throw in emails that were ever
yes.
sent to me that were nice.
Exactly, exactly. And that's what I think everyone should have. And if you get a compliment that's not via email, then you write it down yourself and send
Mhm.
yourself the email so you can put it in your humble
Your
brag or your
folder.
kudos folder. Yes.
Yeah.
so, so
Yeah.
I love that you brought this up. I think
Yeah.
everyone should have this. If you guys are listening and you don't have this done, go ahead and
Do
pull
it.
up your phone
Yeah.
right now, put a little about me list, and then create a humble brag or kudos folder in your email and get that
Well,
rolling.
and you always need I think back to, like, anytime I've gone through an interview process, they always ask the same questions, like, "What are you most proud of? What is a campaign that you worked on that you excelled at? What are these? What is" and if you don't have a list of that stuff, then you have to sit there, you're like, "Oh, I know I've done good things.
Just
I've been on
can't remember,
lists."
right?
Like, I yeah, yeah.
Exactly. No, it makes a huge difference and will
Mhm,
absolutely help elevate your career when you're
mhm.
interviewing, when you're talking to your boss for promotion, and it's going to help you feel good about yourself when anything goes wrong.
Yeah, and it's something that I consistently work on is, like, just I hate to say self-promotion, but you have to at sometimes say, like, "No, I did a really good job here, and here's
Mhm.
what came of it." And so, I think you do have to figure out how to feel comfortable that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's important. We all
Mhm.
need to we need to all learn how to give ourselves a little pat on the
It's
back.
super
So
uncomfortable. I hate it. I hate it, but sometimes you need it.
It
Yeah.
is. So now I talk about this all the time. I'm really passionate about feeding your mind in a proactive way,
Mhm.
because we're all being fed every day without our consent. So how do you feed your mind? And like, is there anything that you've either read, watched, or listened to that had a positive impact on your life that could benefit other people as well?
Yay. I hate to say I'm not a big reader right now with a
That's
little
okay.
a little child at home.
Yeah,
Um,
no, that makes a lot of sense.
but, I think what I try to do is, there's like I have personal career goals that I have not achieved yet, that are tied to like certain kinds of articles or, certain kind of speaking opportunities. So I like immerse myself in those kind of things.
Mhm.
So like I'm constantly reading New York Times features or, watching, various TED Talks or like, those kind of things.
Mhm.
So I try to keep up on that. And then what I do for my mind, um, is I watch a lot of TV.
Mhm.
I
The
watch
break.
TV.
You need a break.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, the break. For the break, I will watch TV, but I do try to stay up on um, uh, not just like, events like what's happening in the world, but I also try to stay up on pop culture because I feel like
Mhm.
that's so important to know kind of what's happening on TikTok, which God makes me feel so old when I say that. But like,
Yeah,
like just those kind of things, like what's happening in the world, the entertainment world and how people
mhm,
are spending their time, because that's definitely helpful in this career.
absolutely. I'm gonna
Yeah.
say Brooke Hammerling's Pop Culture Mondays is something that I
Oh,
absolutely love,
I read it
because
too.
I
Yeah.
I I admit that I'm not, like, super up on the pop culture because I've got lots of things going on all week long, right? I'm
Hmm.
just really focused on all these things, so I get my
Hmm.
dose. I'm like, "Thank you, Brooke,
You know,
for keeping me up to date
I
on a
no,
lot of these
I
things."
do rely a lot on her. It's funny. It's been many years since I worked for her, but uh, I I do rely on her still to keep me up to date on what's going on in the world
Yeah, I
or what
get
am I
the
paying attention to. Like she
yeah.
a couple weeks ago, and I sent her a note, and I'm like, "Oh my god, thank you so much for explaining this to me because I had no idea what people were talking about."
It happens so often. Oh,
Yeah.
a lot of times she'll write her things like, well, if you didn't know about this, your head's been in the sand. I'm like, wow, my head's been in the
My
sand.
head has been in sand. I feel like
Yeah.
I don't know, my mom used to like, when we were kids, teenagers, and we'd watch, like, the MTV Awards, she didn't know who anybody was that was
Right.
performing, and she'd be like, "This is rotting your brain, this is so boring." And now I watch it, and I'm like, "She was right." Like, I don't know who any of these people are, like, it
And I
happened.
don't really care. It
I
has no
don't know
impact on
when
my
it
life.
No, and I don't know when that switch happened, but it definitely happened for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. As well. Me as
So,
well.
yeah.
So that's why it is great to like have a little something that
Yes.
brings you the information so you can you can stay on
Right.
the up.
Yeah, I try to keep up on, like, what are people watching so that I can be a part of that conversation
Yeah,
too, you know? Yeah.
exactly. That's great. So, April, this has been so wonderful. Before
Yeah.
you go, I'd love to ask,
Yeah.
because I believe we're all born with a superpower, and I believe that we all develop superpowers over time. So, I'm curious, what's a superpower you developed over time, and how has it benefited you?
Um, I don't know if this is a superpower, but I am super easygoing, and I'm able to kind of just, like, step into anything and talk to anyone, and, um, yeah, I think I I see that as being a superpower because
Oh, I think.
it's not uncomfortable for me to do that.
Mhm. Oh, that makes you're at ease anywhere you go.
Yeah.
That's an
Yeah.
absolute superpower.
Yeah.
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 And there's so many people listening to you thinking, "Oh my gosh, I wish I could feel that way."
I
So,
know. No, yes, yeah.
what helps you?
It's
Has anything helped you feel that way, though? Get to that point?
I have always been very even keeled. Like
Mhm,
I'm not a super emotional person,
mhm.
which sometimes I think is not great. But in a lot of professional circles, it's really great,
I think it's
you know,
great, personally.
to
Yeah.
just kind of be there.
Yeah. No, I think it's
Yeah.
wonderful. And you did mention, because you mentioned this a couple times, that you have a that's my dog, everyone.
Mhm.
She likes to say hello.
Yeah.
Um, but you did mention, like, a couple of times, your ease of being able to talk to anyone
Yeah.
and have these conversations. So I'm curious, do you have a go-to question
Mm.
that helps you open up conversations?
I mean, it depends on where I am, but usually it's around like something in regard to pop culture or did you see blah blah blah, something like that, to kind of
Mhm.
like start a conversation.
Nice.
I did listen to Dorothy's episode where she said, "What's your story?" And I was like, "Oh, that's a good one. I'm going to take that
Yeah,
from
good
her."
one. I
Yeah,
know.
usually it's like about wherever we are.
So you use
Something
something
that's
recent.
happening around.
I think it's very valuable for people who aren't super comfortable in these things to hear how other people,
Mhm.
because we can all put them in our little pockets
Yeah.
to use for
Another
ourselves.
Oh, totally. Another good question is what interests you these days? Like, what are you
Right. That's
focused on?
great. Yeah.
Which, when you're a reporter, that's kind of,
Mhm.
you need to know those things. So,
Great for that. Yes. All
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
This has been absolutely
Yeah.
wonderful. Thank you so much, April, for joining us on the Career Windowless podcast.
Yeah. Thank you. It's been fun.
Thank you for joining us on the Career Wanderlust podcast. If you find value in learning from others, give us a like and subscribe. If you're looking to grow your communications, marketing, public relations, or sales and biz dev team with the best talent and quickly, check us out at paradigmstaffing.com and submit a request. We are wishing you a most successful and fulfilling career. Until next time.